Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Nick from Latitude 33 Geckos. I just wanted to make a quick video to answer some people's questions about what kind of setups they should use, what kind of setups we use, different recommendations I could have for you. So first of all, if you just have one gecko and it's your first gecko, get yourself a 10-gallon aquarium that you can find in any of your local pet stores. It's a real easy way to go. It's a good way to view your geckos. Put them on a dresser or stand or whatever you got and view them. It's real easy. For heating on a 10-gallon aquarium, I recommend that you get the under tank heater. It's also referred to as a UTH. They make them specifically for different size tanks, but you want it to basically cover about a quarter to a third of the tank, so that they have a good hot side and then the cold side as well. You want to make sure that they have a hide on the warm side, a hide on the cool side, and also a moist hide. Anyway, if you're gonna put the moist hide on one side or the other, I usually would recommend to put it on the warm side. That's what we do, and it works out well. So the 10-gallon terrarium aquarium, typical size is 20 inches long by 10 inches wide by 10 inches or so deep. It's a good size for one leopard gecko. What we use, however, is the 12-gallon tub made by Sterilite. The number on it is 1843. You can find these at Walmart. It's a real good way to go, especially if you're using a rack shelving system. 5 holes on each side from a soldering iron melted into there is what we do for ventilation. It tends to work really well, and we use heat tape, and it's either 3-inch or 4-inch strips, and that goes basically, you know, on a third or so, quarter to a third of the tub, and then the other side's the cold side. That works out really well. What we use for hides for our adults are these little kind of Tupperware containers that Target makes. We cut a hole here on the side, and that tends to work real well. We put cocoa fiber in there for their substrate, and it's filled up to about here or so, so there's still adequate amount for the females to lay in, and yet it doesn't really get kicked out of that hole too easy. We put them on the side so that the moisture doesn't really evaporate out a hole that you would cut in the top, and the moisture stays in there. We just found that works out a little bit better. So anyway, if this is the hot side, we put them in there just like that, and it works really well. And that's the only hide that they use. We also keep a water dish, which is these are like candle holders, I guess. We fill these up just about a quarter to a third of the way, and they evaporate out before we foam up again, and that prevents, you know, excess bacteria or the gecko tromping around through it and taking their vitamin powder with them or feces or whatever into the water dish. So it tends to work out pretty well, and we put that on the cold side, and we use these little mealworm dishes made by Superior, I think it is, and the mealworms don't crawl out because you've got this little lip around the edge, and these are disposable. You can wash them a few times if you like, but we just put that on the cold side as well, and we put our vitamin powder right in there with the mealworms. So that tends to work out really well. For our hatchlings, we use the Sterilite 6-quart containers. These are the blue ones. I don't really like using the blue ones too much, truthfully. I like the clear ones, but for the albinos, I found that the blue ones tend to help out a little bit more. They seem to be able to I mean, maybe it's just in my head, but from what I can tell, they seem to travel out beyond their hide during the day or whatever, a little bit more, or the twilight hours, I guess, or whenever we have the lights on in the room, more so than they would with a clear tub. And these are the 1851 Sterilite 6-quart containers that Walmart carries. So in comparison, just size-wise, the 10-gallon aquarium is 20 inches long by 10 inches wide by 10 inches tall, and the 12-quart 1843 Sterilite tub is about 15 or so inches long, about 10 inches wide or so, and about 5.5 or 6 inches tall. So that's actually kind of comparable to the aquarium there. You can't quite see them side by side, but it's pretty comparable. Beside the a little bit shorter on the length and definitely not as tall, but it's a good size for an adult. The 6 quarts are almost 7 inches wide and almost 13 inches long, and about 4.5 inches deep. Those work really well for the babies. We put a paper towel in there, and then on the worm side we throw in one of these number 2 meat packing trays. We cut out the corner of it so they can run in and out, and then we put the mealworms and the vitamin powder in one of these mealworm dishes again, and just throw that right on top. They seem to find them just fine. For the really little guys, we'll sometimes use these really little dishes that we have that don't have a little lip around the top of them like that, so that the mealworms crawl out and the geckos can find them. We also feed dubia pretty regularly, almost half and half with the mealworms, and the dubia can definitely crawl out of those mealworm dishes. They don't do it all that often, but I don't know, maybe half the time they crawl out of there. So anyway, with the heat tape and the under tank heater on the aquarium, we monitor those temperatures with one of these little guys. It's the ZooMed standard thermometer digital thermometer that they make. They cost about $7 to $10 or so at Petco, PetSmart, your local pet store, whatever. They work great. They seem like they measure the temperature pretty accurately compared to all the other thermometers we've used. We also use a temperature gun. You can visit our blog. It's latitude33geckos.wordpress.com. I've got a little article about how to maintain and monitor your temperatures. But anyway, that's kind of the rundown. We've also kept geckos in a 28 quart. It's one of these big guys in our racks. And that works pretty well for a couple geckos, but we've really found that the geckos tend to do a lot better when they're housed individually. This one's 22 inches by 15 inches wide, and it's about 5.5, 6 inches tall, and it tends to work pretty good. But if you house a single gecko in there, it's really too much. The geckos don't do as well as they do in the 12 quarts, believe it or not. A lot of people would think that they would do better in a little bit bigger enclosure, but yeah, we've tested it. We test a lot of stuff that other breeders have recommended throughout the years, and some stuff definitely does work really well. Some stuff doesn't work quite as well as other methods. So sometimes you gotta test it out and figure it out for yourself what's going to work best for you and your geckos. And what we found is housing them individually allows us to monitor their health better, just to get more accurate data points on their defecation, their eating, their vitamin intake. Sometimes some geckos, they go through all their vitamins. It's really funny. Some of them just lick it up like crazy on some days. Other days they don't touch it. So just being able to monitor all that kind of stuff is really good. When you've got multiple geckos in there, it becomes a little bit harder to figure out who's doing what. So if you got a gecko going downhill quick, sometimes it's hard to figure out right away. Whereas if you house them individually, it's a little bit easier to keep track. So anyway, I hope that all makes sense.